Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast, spoiler special episode. My name is Martin Harries, your host. On this episode, we are talking plot lines, characters, and all things spoilerific. You have been warned. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Hello, podsters or podroonies, if you prefer. We are back again for another spoiler special this time, the second of the year, I believe. And this one is dedicated to, arguably, people are saying, and I frankly agree, the best film of the year so far. And I'm joined by Tommy from Haven't Seen It. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on. So this, I agree, is probably one of the best movies of the year. I think my number one so far.
Yeah, it's just a great, genre-mashing movie from Ryan Coogler, starring Michael B. Jordan, playing twins, Smoke and Stack. So this film was certainly on my top 10 anticipated films of this year, and it certainly didn't let me down. Shot on IMAX film, not digital IMAX, shot on IMAX film, so it looks amazing overall. A few little niggles here and there with the film, but generally an amazing time at the cinema. I've seen it twice now. Usually when I do a spoiler special episode, when we do Marvel films, I'm never that compelled to oh yeah, I need to watch that again to take it all in. Whereas there's so much going on here. I'm I need to see this again before we record.
Yeah.
So I did, and I think it just gets better, I think. And the emotions at the end kind of hit me harder. I didn't cry or anything, but it gets me in the feels. Yeah, really great. So what happens in Sinners, directed by Ryan Coogler and written by him? Well, we are in Mississippi, Clarksdale, in 1932, and Smoke and Stack, played by Michael B. Jordan, who plays twins. They're kind of trying to leave their troubled lives behind and return to their hometown to start again, only to discover that an even greater evil is waiting to welcome them back. And of course, I read that from IMDb, who do a stand-up job, as always. Wink, wink. So, Tommy, what did you make of this one?
I really love this movie. I was looking forward to it. I think I was able to see it in IMAX. I was able to convince my girlfriend that we could go to the theater in the IMAX an hour away instead of the regular screen 10 minutes away. So I was able to win that one. Yeah. And she loved it too. She loved it so much. She saw it back-to-back nights. So I was like, okay, that's another one for me. And she saw it in standard the next night. So it was not. She thought IMAX was way better. I was like, okay, now you see why we went all the way there.
Yeah, I'm very jealous.
Yeah,
I have seen it twice, but I wasn't able to see it in IMAX.
Oh, there's no IMAX screens near you?
Well, there was. That's the thing. There was one in Southampton, but that closed a few years ago after the pandemic. So I think that I don't know. I really don't know where the nearest one is. Frankly, probably the nearest one is London. So, I mean, that is a niggle of mine that there's definitely, you can tell when you don't watch a film that's shot in IMAX where it's been cut, the top and bottom. I think I've seen enough films that have been shot in IMAX where I'm just yeah, I'm losing some picture here in these big Vista wide shots, especially here. I'm yep, I should be seeing the bottom of the car, the top of the church right now, but I'm not. So I guess that is a little gripe of mine, just an industry gripe. If you're going to make a film in IMAX, we need more theaters that can show it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky on the Northeast in United States and Connecticut. There's a decent amount of IMAX theaters, right. But still, because there's so many moments in this movie where if you see it in IMAX, I'm sure you've heard this, where the aspect ratio just changes and the screen just envelops you, and those moments are extremely powerful and probably my favorite parts of the movie. So, I mean, seeing it, apparently the physical media release is going to have the IMAX ratio, which great move by them. Yeah, so at least you'll get that.
Yeah, my TV's pretty big, so it should work.
Yeah.
Obviously, no comparison to the cinema. Obviously, go see it in the cinema, people. If you've already seen it, obviously, thank you for listening. But if you haven't, what are you doing?
We're spoiling this movie.
yeah. We are spoiling everything. So yeah, initial reactions for me, I fucking love this film. I loved all the vampire elements to it. And obviously the best way to watch it is obviously if you don't know that going in, but it's kind of hard to not know that going into this, certainly with the marketing campaign. And I love the fact that as well that they've made it a big thing as well with one of the Ryan Coogler interviews that he did on social media, that the influence for the design of Remick, Jack O'Connell's character as the main vampire in this, the main antagonist that with the red eyes, that's influence from Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. The villain in that has like red eyes. I'm just like, that is amazing.
Music connection.
That he got that from an animated film. Like, I love the fact that he's just picking up animated films in general anyway, because of all this live action shite that comes out. I'm just like, it does feel like a bit of a disrespect to animation. So I love the fact that he's drawing a big inspiration from an animated film, which is amazing to hear. I think first off with this film, like, I love the fact that the film takes its time. Like, this is like 2 hours 10, 2 hours 15-minute movie, which isn't, I would argue like a really long film these days. But I love the fact that in that first kind of 45 minutes that it takes its time to get to know Smoke and Stack and Miles as well. Not Miles. Miles is the actor.
Sammy. Yeah. It was great because the vampires, I'm curious, like on rewatch, so once I can see us at home.
Yeah.
Like I want to pause the movie right when like the vampires show up, when Jack O'Connell shows up. Because I feel like that's about like at the midway part of this movie, like almost an hour in. And it's a testament to this movie that like you're not bored at all during like the parts where like, okay, like I came for a vampire movie, where are the vampires? Because you can see like a poor version. I mean, this obviously gets a lot of connections to From Dusk Till Dawn.
Oh, yeah.
And that's another movie where the first half is just a very interesting crime story and like develops you, but you can see a shitty version of this where it's just slowly paced and you're just like, all right, let's move on. Let's see some bloodsuckers.
Whereas, I mean, I've heard some criticism that, not many, only one review I've seen on IMDb, where from The Guardian, of course, from this country, that said he would prefer like a real story without the vampires in it. But I think the vampires kind of makes this story work in a way, which we'll come to, of course. But yeah, I just love this kind of slow build that you get, getting to know everyone, and I love just all kind of the side characters. They get a lot to say. But what I kind of really enjoy about this film as well is that it sort of gives off this guys on a mission type feel, like a team up feel kind of thing, where even though that no one's going anywhere to kill anyone, or at least they don't know that at the time, they're just trying to just set up this juke joint,
It's like a heist movie montage.
Yeah, Stack is going after Delroy Lindo for the music, and he bribes him with an Irish beer, which is great funny scene. And like Smoke goes to town and gets the Grace Cho to make the sign, and then we meet Masaka's character as well, an ex-lover of his, to cook for them. So it's kind of great how, like, it's a great kind of structure in the way that they're introducing all these side characters. Well, not really side characters. It is kind of presented like that, but it feels more like an ensemble film, even though kind of Miles and Smoke and Stack are like the main leads here. But it's just kind of a great kind of structure in that first act to kind of introduce everyone and get everyone in the same space.
Yeah, it's a great like build up of the community and showing like what the life was like back then, especially the historical figures, how the Chinese community was so much within the African American communities back then in the 1920s and everything like that.
Yeah, music is a huge part of this story, I feel like. Of course, I love this idea that you get from Annie's voiceover in that prologue, that if you create music so pure, you can attract the spirits from the past and future of your culture and other cultures as well. So you see that guy, when you see that guy with the shiny shoulder pads and is playing like a massive electric guitar in that incredible like one shot, at first I was like, huh? What the hell's going on? Is this going way too far? But then when obviously the incredible music kind of gets into gear from Ludwig Göransson, who does the score, like you see all these different people from different times, and you're like, this totally works. Actually, it's just an incredible shot. That's kind of the one scene where you're like, yeah, this is the main theme of this film, is how like music bonds everyone together, and kind of the opposition of that with Remick, his vampire, is just kind of trying to consume all that for his own gain and not really caring about the people that he's gaining it from.
It was a great metaphor of like gentrification, of like how like so many people like steal from the culture and everything like that and make it for themselves, where like Remick is literally a cultural vampire, where he doesn't really have like much culture of himself, where he's like, I want your culture, I want your music for myself, for my own needs.
So is there an argument to say that this is a musical, or is it a film about music? Because some people have been saying that this is a musical.
I think this is more a movie about music in general, because I mean, I think when I go to musicals, I'd think like, oh, like characters break out into song for no reason and like elaborate dance numbers throughout. But it feels like that's only maybe like a third of this movie when it comes down to it.
Yeah.
In terms of performances and everything like that. And that's why I don't feel like it's a musical.
I mean, there are arguments to say like things like Frozen is a musical, but like it stops being a musical like halfway through. I think people forget that. And like with things like Joker Folie à Deux, which I haven't seen yet. I know it's been absolutely trash.
Thankfully, I haven't either.
I am intrigued to see it, because I certainly don't like the first one. But I bring that up because obviously Todd Phillips has said that it's not a musical, even though it very much was. But he was kind of saying that to justify it, that it's not, is the fact that when you're watching a musical, it makes you feel good. Like it's always a great time when you're watching a musical. And the case could be said for this film as well. Like when the musical numbers come on, like the musical numbers are amazing. Like the way Ludwig Göransson mixes all this together to make it sound very traditional with the bluesy music and the guitars and the rhythm and the beats, but infusing that with kind of very like a modern score. And yet he's putting in like hip hop stuff in there with that incredible one shot, but not just that shot. There's other little darker tones in there with his music, certainly when the vampires come on screen. So, it's a great vibe when the music numbers are on, and it really gets you in the mood. It really gets you in the mood for watching this movie. And it's a great fucking feeling, to be honest. It really is great. So from that aspect, I'm like, there is an argument to say that this is a musical.
I think you could definitely make the argument, and I think that it does play a big part. I think that this is also a masterclass in sound design, especially seen in IMAX. Like even like the scene where Remick and like was in the field in the circle of all the people doing like the Irish music right there, and just the sound design there of like the stomps and the claps or anything. That I remember my girlfriend was like stomping her hand
really?
at one point.
Nice.
She was getting into it. So it's definitely in that aspect. I mean, seeing it in like the best sound system you can really amplifies it too.
Yeah, awesome. Remick, the Irish vampire, I loved that character. Just the design of him was great. Obviously, we've already talked about the red eyes, but like towards the end, I feel like his fingernails just get like longer and longer, which I loved. I don't know whether that was kind of a late addition because of like things like Nosferatu. I don't know. They came out earlier this year for me. Obviously, Christmas for you guys, but yeah. So probably not, but I love the fact that the kind of these old school scary vampires are back. You've got Nosferatu, you've got the Voyage of the Demeter, other ones, not shiny vampires anymore.
They're having a moment. Yeah, no more Twilight. Exactly. To get rid of that, like we're back into vampires, like they're scary again. So, and this did give me like shades of Near Dark also in terms of vampires and like the design right there, and like the more. So,
yeah,
that in itself is awesome.
Yeah, I loved a lot of the kind of the vampire elements that they bring into this world, but one element that's not necessarily associated with vampires, well, I certainly haven't seen anyway, with a vampire movie is kind of this hive mind idea that you normally have with like AI stories, robot stories, or things like that. And I think it works brilliantly with this idea that in this case, this Irish vampire just wants to assimilate, to use a Star Trek term, all this kind of music and all cultures and not really care who the victims are. Like their idea of freedom is as a collective forever. Like you don't, like there's endless possibilities of listening and singing to all types of music. We just got to assimilate them.
Yeah. I mean, it was insane also just like how Remick gets into the movie right here. He literally drops into the movie.
Yeah.
Like straight, like midway through the movie, all of a sudden it's like, all right, now we're going into the horror aspects right here. Remick is here. He's going to the house of two like Klansmen, taking over everything, and this is where the assimilation starts.
Yeah, I love that kind of the flying aspect of the vampires here. Like as you said, when Remick falls into shot, he's literally falling into shot. But I like the fact that they're not making it really blatant that they can fly. Like there's that great scene later on, I think when he's about to bite Haley Steinfeld's character Mary, and she's kind of walking back to the juke joint, and like in the background you just see Remick just kind of lift up off the ground slightly and then cut to the next scene. So they're not like really overplaying their hand kind of thing with that style, because it can look fucking goofy. I've seen the fucking Lost Boys. It doesn't look great. Sorry about that. Fans of that movie, go listen to that episode. I'm not a fan. I'm really sorry.
Disappointing.
Yeah, but the kind of the flying aspects are great here. Really not overused. And yeah, when he does show up on screen, he's there's nothing behind him. You get the reverse angle when he's at the door. There's nothing there. So yeah,
it's great. Very short and suspenseful, and just great use of like wire work where we only see a brief moment. So it doesn't play it out right there. And I thought just like the overall pacing of this movie was so fantastic that there wasn't a moment where I was just like wanting to check the clock or be like, okay, what are we getting through here? I think they built up everything so successfully to this one night, and once things are really going for the party, then we introduce the horror elements. We get a little bit more in there.
Yeah, sticking with the vampires, like one of my favorite kind of rules in vampire movies is obviously they have to be invited to come into someone's home, and they really use that rule really effectively in this movie. I loved how they used it. I think some of the best scenes are with that role, and like I loved the bit where like Omar Benson Miller, who plays Cornbread, the kind of the bouncer at the door, the doorman, who gets turned and wants to be invited back in by Smoke, but Annie's like, nope, you ain't coming in. You're talking to me now, not Smoke. And then Cornbread is like, can I get, okay, if you're not going to let me in, I want to at least get paid. And I love the cutting when Smoke slowly sticks out his arm, and then Cornbread grabs it real quick, and then really nice cut with the music for a really effective jump scare. And then literally Smoke blows his jaw off. That was great. That was another aspect of kind of this film, which I really enjoyed, is that the vampires don't like heal themselves after an injury. They're still like up and happy, like even though his jaw is hanging off or whatever. Not there anymore.
Just hanging on a thread. And I think the best scene in this whole movie was when like Grace Chow, the character, just tells everyone, like, you're welcome. Like, come on in. And it's the one benefit of IMAX, where that's this moment where all of a sudden when they open up the barn door or the like juke joint door, all of a sudden the screen just envelops and like it goes extremely large right there to a point where it's fantastic. But I felt it was an overall metaphor of like, be wary of like who you're supposed to invite or into the community or your party or anything like that. So I think it's the best use of vampires in terms of they can't come inside unless they're invited. I've seen the vampire movie.
Yeah. I think certainly Let the Right One In is a great
one as well. That's the other one. Yeah.
Obviously,
it is the title.
Yeah. It's all about that. And that's a great effect as well, where when the little vampire comes into a home uninvited and she kind of bleeds in her face, out of her eyes and nose and mouth. That was a great effect. You don't really have that. I appreciate that as well. There's no kind of stupid like special effect where like a vampire is trying to get in and there's no like force shield
yeah, some cheesy
in
shit.
the door or anything. They just can't come in. That's it. So I love that. And also just a little thing as well. There's kind of no messing about like calling them vampires as well. Sometimes there's kind of not really anyway. I mean, Annie suspects they're called like hates. I don't know, just evil spirits coming back to life or something. Annie, the kind of witch doctor, kind of psychic, I guess, of this world in this time period, she kind of works out pretty quick that they're called vampires, and you just kind of accept it. Everyone accepts what she's saying, and I love that, really. There's some vampire films, they don't really just they don't call them vampires. They're just supernatural beings or something,
Day or night walkers or something like that. It's even a thing in zombie movies. To the point, I'm wearing a Shaun the Dead shirt right now, and in that movie where they make the joke about like zombies are like, oh, you can't say the Z word, like don't say that.
Yeah.
But sometimes with vampire movies and zombie movies, it's just like, all right, let's just get past it. These exist. Like you don't need to walk around it or like call them like walkers, like in The Walking Dead or something. Just call them vampires, call them zombies. It's fine.
Yeah. I mean, I think when the violence and the gore comes, it's really fantastic. You certainly have to wait for it, which is always a great kind of feeling anyway. You have this great build up to it. It's
like a pressure valve to the point that you're forgetting that the movie you came in to see was for vampires. And then once it kick in, like, oh yeah, that's what I'm here for.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite moments in terms of the violence and the gore is when Grace Chow like throws a Molotov cocktail and like Ramek deflects it onto the door, and then she kind of stabs her husband and she catches on fire, and then he catches on fire, and it's just quite a visceral moment of kind of passion in killing her husband. That was quite remarkable. And then that great moment where like Sammy near the end like hits Ramek over the head with his guitar, and like the silver metal disc, it stays in his head. That was amazingly gory as well.
I just loved also just like how the oh shit, like this is what's happening moment of Haley Steinfeld killing it was like Stack and like basically like eating him up and all the blood over her face, just great makeup right there, drilling down her face. She says the most menacing thing possible, like you're all gonna die tonight, completely terrified.
So Haley Steinfeld's really good in this, I must say. Yeah, it's a very naughty film. Very naughty, very sexy. So I kind of love this kind of atmosphere of the film as well. The fact that it is quite steamy and dirty and kind of very sexy in that way. There's Sammy goes down on, I can't remember her character's name now, but she goes down on her. There's a lot of talk about oral sex.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was I didn't quite catch it in my first viewing. The second viewing, I'm like, oh, they're talking about that. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Like, all right, I guess we're doing it.
Yeah. But I love the fact that they're not, you've got a lot of like violence and gore in this and blood, yet they're still not afraid to like add quite, I wouldn't say graphic sex, but like some sex that you wouldn't expect to see, I don't think, going into this. So yeah, I appreciated that, to be honest. I think it just makes it feel more real and passionate, and just adds to this whole sweaty, passionate theme of the film, really, of this culture.
Yeah, and in a way, this movie feels so much like a throwback to like I've been watching so many '90s thrillers lately, and it feels just right in that wheelhouse. Like you could definitely see this in between like two random '90s thrillers in between. It work perfectly right there, especially with like the level of violence and like the level of like sex that we don't really see as much in movies these days. It just feels like really like okay, we're getting back to like what it used to be like in the mid '90s run of like erotic thrillers and thrillers in general.
Yeah, definitely, and just certainly the whole look of it. With what you're talking about, it obviously shot on film, and a lot of films these days aren't shot on film, which I totally get, certainly from a budgeting standpoint. So I love the fact that Ryan Coogler felt really confident in shooting it on film, and it definitely feels, I feel like you would lose something if it was shot digitally and like converted to an IMAX, ratio. So I definitely appreciate that, and it just, for me, I know I've probably spoke about this a lot, but like film just brings this great grain and great look to it, really inky blacks. Saying that though, I have seen this twice, and when like Smoke does go to town in the beginning, when she's talking to the teenage girl about giving her money, so when he goes to the shop, the girl will like honk the horn if someone tries to steal his stuff. Like there's a few shots in that feel very dark. So I don't know whether some of the film didn't come out great, and there was just no way around it. So there is always that kind of risk. So, but overall, like the film looks gorgeous. It really does.
Yeah. There is something to be said about how much better shooting on film is. I didn't really catch that moment you were talking about. It didn't really feel dark for me. At least maybe it was just the difference in like screens or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I think in general, when you shoot on film, you're going to get a large, darker colors, and greater field of vision. Because like when you look at films, like recently there was a 4K that came out for Kill Bill that was shot digitally, and it does. And as great as that movie is, there's only so much you can do once a film's shot digitally, especially 20 years ago with the technology. You can only upscale it so much, wherein you do an upscale of like a 35 millimeter, or in this case 70 millimeter, it will look gorgeous and amazing because just the film stock is just so much better. So I'm very curious to see how much this would be affected on 70 millimeter. Like there's only doing it in New York City near me, and my buddy saw it. He said it was incredible. I was like, well, I wish there was a 70 millimeter projector near me.
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean, that would be incredible to see that. I mean, it's a huge risk as well. Certainly, I mean, this is not a massive budget, I don't think, in the grand scheme of things. But saying that, $90 million is a lot of money to make a film that's not based on any IP. You're majorly genre mashing, like period piece, horror, vampires, semi-musical. You know, that's a lot of ingredients in the mix to make a movie not based on any original text at all from Ryan Coogler's mind.
It's crazy like how much of a blank check this is for Ryan Coogler, because he said in an interview recently this is his first original project, because he did the Fruitvale Station, that was based on a true story. Then he did Creed, that's a Rocky sequel, and then he did the two Black Panther things, which are based on comics. So it just shows how successful those previous movies were and how much great they were. The fact that he's able to do this original story, and it's, I think by now, like the most successful original story movie we've had in a while.
Which is amazing. But I mean, it does feel like a shame as well that he's had to make, like, maybe just contract things as well, but like he's had to make 2 Marvel films, you know, Rocky spin-off before he can make something original. Maybe he didn't have this in the pipeline before then, I don't know, but we might not ever know. But yeah, I just feel like studios need to take more risks with talent, you know, with writers and directors, and not rely on, not like having a director make and be successful with a big IP movie, and then they're allowed to like do their own thing.
We don't need constant IP.
I get it.
I hope this is a reversal of trends, where it feels like lately, like a lot of like the big IP like sequels we've had in the last few years have not done well. Like Indiana Jones, that bombed. And like,
mainly because it costs like fucking shitloads. Like 300 million. I'm like, what?
Yeah, exactly. That's like too much right there. It's like, come on, do we really need Indiana Jones to be that much? But regardless, I just hope that this bucks a trend. I mean, Ryan Coogler, I feel like he's going to do Black Panther 3, but outside of that, I feel like he's, this point forward, almost exclusively going to make original movies, and I'm excited to see what his next step is.
Yeah, I think he's reviving the X-Files next, apparently.
Yeah. And I'm hoping with that means that David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson are coming in, because if they're not in, it's not the X-Files, just name it something else.
Yeah, definitely. Apparently they have Ryan Coogler has spoken to Gillian Anderson, apparently. Anyway, back to Sinners. Like, one of the kind of the interesting themes of this film, I think, which is interesting, is just the meaning of being free and freedom. Like, you have Sammy's character, who is arguably kind of your central character in many ways, and he kind of doesn't want to become like constrained in his father's church. So he wants to play incredible blues with the people that want to listen. So, you know, there's that really interesting scene in the beginning with his father, and kind of the guitar is there on a bench, and his father asks him, like, I want you to help me with the next sermon, the readings I want you to read from. and he starts reading, and then he kind of closes the Bible and like literally like reads it off anyway. So he kind of knows a lot about his religious text anyway. So it's just kind of interesting that, you know, he's just not, it's not that he doesn't love his father and he doesn't believe in God or anything, because you do hear that he says the Lord's Prayer when he thinks he's about to die from Remick. So he you know, his religion is core to who he is, but it's very constraining for him, like for him to feel free and live his life in a passionate way, like a lot of his fellow people. He needs to play music, you know. So that's kind of a really interesting idea as well. And what's kind of goes against his point of view a little bit is the fact that this also kind of has a very strong gangster theme to this film as well. You know, with Sammy's character, as he kind of idolizes Smoke and Stack, and he wants to be like them. And because he says to Smoke at one point, I think he wants to, after this night, he wants to go off on his own, and he says maybe go to Chicago, where Smoke and Stack fled from. And obviously we don't really know exactly why Smoke and Stack have come back.
Yeah, it feels like they're talking about like the Smoke and Stack worked for like Al Capone or something like that, or whoever big gangster at the time, and then they kind of were on the run. I like that they don't expand on the like backstory. I've seen people saying they want a prequel of it, but we don't need that. We just know what's in the movie. I think they give us enough information to move on from there.
You kind of know why they've kind of come back in a way, because Smoke is like, yeah, I don't want Sammy to go back to Chicago or go to Chicago. He doesn't want Sammy to be like them. Like Smoke recognizes that Sammy has an incredible talent, that if you go down the gangster route like us, you're going to get yourself in danger, or if not killed. So yes, a very kind of popular theme and story in gangster films, but I think certainly one that it works so well in this film, as music and kind of talent and culture is so important to Sam and this movie.
It's a real moment of like, make sure you're following your own dreams, make sure you're doing your dreams for you, and like what you want. Don't say what like your dad wants, or like what you're feel like you're forced to do. And he doesn't really feel free until the moment that he sings. And the great part of this movie, there's so many movies where you see like this type of thing where like this guy's like a great performer, and oh my god, and it ends up being like in the movie it brings great expectations for whoever's doing the actor of the performance of like. Yeah, if their performance sucks, then the movie just doesn't work. But in terms of Sammy, the actor who played Sammy in this movie, Miles Kenton, when he sings, you're like, I get it immediately. This guy's incredible. This guy is amazing. Yeah. He's a fantastic singer.
Yeah, I don't know whether he's from Oakland like Ryan Coogler. He has an incredibly deep voice, like Ryan Coogler kind of has a little bit. I mean, I learned that, you know, Ryan Coogler's accent is apparently from Oakland when he was doing the press tour for Black Panther, and I haven't really heard anyone kind of speak like that before, until this guy, Miles Catton. So I was like, okay, yeah, I do wonder whether there's a kind of connection there for Ryan Coogler as well, because apparently this is very much one of his most personal films as well, in terms of his own kind of ancestry for Ryan Coogler.
Yeah, apparently Miles Catton was also born in Brooklyn, which I can see that deepness right there. But I mean, for Ryan Coogler, he's saying how personal it is, just how music connects us throughout generations and anything. Like the Annie line right there, it just shows throughout the movie.
One little scene I really liked towards the end was this kind of scene where, like, you kind of usually see at the beginning of films. I think it's about when Smoke is dying after he's been shot. And he sees, he goes back to everyone kind of setting up the juke joint, like, you know, Wumi Masaka and Grace, like cooking the food, setting up the signs, and everyone's kind of like having fun and smiling. And it's just like, it's kind of a little thing, but I just kind of loved the fact that everyone is together, feeling happy, working together for the same goal. Yeah, it's just a little thing that kind of, it was really interesting to kind of show that at the end of your film, and not kind of in a montage scene, you know, before, you know, the juke joint is completed, which you would normally expect. So that was a really interesting choice for me.
Yeah, I think that also just like highlighted the tragedy of the night of like how this community was right on the precipice of budding, and like, you know, who would have known maybe if this night didn't happen with the vampires, maybe things would have been successful. I mean, I feel like they already were aware of the guys being KKK people trying to attack them. So like probably would have gotten past that. So it's just a real tragedy to show what happens all because they let the wrong one in.
Yeah, that's another kind of great aspect about this film as well, is after kind of when they kill Remick and all the vampires burn, you're like, that's not the end of the threats in this film. The kind of the political landscape, the racist landscape of this film with the KKK haven't gone away.
Yeah.
You know, they're still there, and they kind of they all come back to try and kill Smoke. And it's an incredible shootout, brilliantly shot. I don't particularly agree with the tactics. I think I would have gone with the Tommy gun first, and then the rifle. But sure, go ahead. But I love the fact that he's kind of, in a way, he's choosing his way out rather than succumbing to becoming a vampire like a lot of the others. Yeah, so it's a really kind of poignant scene, and almost, I mean, it doesn't bring home a lot of the emotion in the action. It's still very stylized, but I just love that juxtaposition of, you think all the violence has stopped, but like for these characters in this time, the violence never stops. It keeps coming.
Yeah. Like, surprise, there's still the shit that you knew was going to happen that you probably forgot about because you're getting attacked by vampires. So
yeah, I mean, I loved that scene from Michael B. Jordan and Wumi Masako, who plays Annie, when Smoke is dying. He's sat on his ass, you know, with the gun, and then Wumi Masako turns up with their lost baby as ghosts, and they're all wearing these beautiful white dresses, and he's just about to like hold his baby, his lost baby, and then the KKK leader says something, and he just, without even really thinking, he just blows him away. He sat down
immediately.
I thought that was kind of brilliantly done, brilliantly performed by both of them. That was certainly the start of where I was, you know, the emotions were kind of hitting me for sure. Was that, did the emotions start hitting you, or did it not make sense?
I think maybe a little bit beforehand, where like the whole moment of seeing like Remnick die, and right before when Smoke and Stack were fighting each other upstairs and everything like that. Just showing like the tragedy of like the two brothers and like now completely different factions in the span of like one crazy night. So and the epilogue, which we haven't really talked about. I thought a fantastic move. I mean, it technically is a post-credit scene, but it happens like maybe 30 seconds after the credits roll.
That's why, I mean, I love the scene, but why is it not before the credits? I still don't understand that, if I'm honest, because when I saw it the second time, there was literally people walking out before that scene happened. So I'm like, you are literally missing like the great emotional gut punch of this film, and you've missed it. When you think the film is over. So it's like, oh, really?
Yeah, my buddy who saw it, I told him, like, there was like two post-credit scenes. He was like, oh, fuck, like I left like immediately afterwards. It's like, dude, have some patience. So, but overall, I mean, I think having Buddy Guy, especially, he's like a legendary blues musician over here in the U.S., still touring to this day, and he's like in his late 80s. But I think it was just a brilliant casting choice right there. I thought he was just really fantastic as the older Sammmmy, and I think it was just a great coda to the whole movie of just saying how Stack is like, yeah, that was the last great night of my life, and nothing has ever compared since the sense of community I had and never had but since.
Yeah, the line that got me was when Sammy was like, as you say, like, yeah, that was the last great night I've ever had, and like Stack was like, yeah, it's because that was the last time I saw my brother. Oh, that was like, that really got me the second time, especially. And also kind of there's a little, and it also just a great little moment when they literally just hug. It's not really done for suspense or tension because obviously he is a vampire, and you're like, oh, is he going in to bite him? You don't really get that sense either. It's just he's going in for a hug. And then they walk, you know, then they have that incredible line. And I love the fact that he's just like, Stack's like, I've got all your records, but I don't really like that electric shit. I like the real stuff.
I'm really being a traditionalist about it. Like, come on.
Yeah.
But I did also just like in that scene, like how different, like Stack and Mary were, just like as being vampires for 60 years. Where when we first see them, they're just as vampires are very animalistic and just like succumb to their nature. Whereas at this point, they feel like they've been living in society for so many years that they're like not immediately going to kill everyone in the bar or something like that. They can have some self control within themselves after being exposed to this for so many years.
Yeah, I guess you kind of get that sense as well in that last little scene that they kind of wish that they're not vampires anymore. They kind of wish that they had Smoke's fate, really, that they're with their ancestors. That's what's kind of great about this film, is that there's this great duel about how we see moments and how we see moments of joy and things that we appreciate. Like, do we want to like have immortality? Do we want to like last a really long time on this earth to appreciate as much as possible and yet dilute all of the great things that we can experience when you get really old? When you can't get old, I guess, in this film. Whereas in this film, they're kind of, the humans in this are just like, yeah, we want to experience great culture and live in the moment. That's kind of the feeling I was kind of getting about what the core of this film is. And there's obviously a lot of themes, like where, again, going back to what I said at the start, like with the Irish vampires, they're basically just trying to like accumulate all of everyone's great culture and not really caring about who they take it from.
Yeah. Well, I'm wondering also if, like, in terms of, like, in universe lore, of like, if once Remrick died, if they were not really as much as a hive mind, because it did feel like they weren't like exactly like the same in terms of stuff like that. I felt like they evolved in a way, whereas with Remrick, I feel like they would have been stuck back.
Yeah. Another really interesting point that's kind of just come to me is the fact that it's always kind of been interesting why Remrick wanted Sammy as a vampire. And I think this theme that because Sammy can create pure music, this pure power that can bring back the ancestors of future and past spirits, even though they obviously don't know that, but maybe Remrick can feel that. Obviously, when he I don't know why I keep saying assimilate. When he turns Sammy into a vampire, he can, because they can read minds, that Remrick can literally probably feel that kind of power that Sammy can invoke with his music. Maybe, I don't know. So it's kind of like, and obviously he wants to change Sammy into a vampire because he himself can't produce pure music like Sammy can, to see his own ancestors, which is what he wants, which I noticed on the second viewing. So again, it very much feeds into this theme that he just wants other people's ability to create amazing music, to feel something for his own ancestors, to see his ancestors again with his own power, with his own kind of supernatural power. So it's kind of this very much this supernatural, otherworldly power versus kind of this pure passion power, if you will.
I think that with Remrick, his main reason for like wanting to steal Sammy is just like to take over his culture, take over his talent, and like basically make it for himself. And a huge metaphor for like things that were happening back in the 1950s when like rock and roll really exploded. And it wasn't just because of Chuck Berry or Little Richard, even though they were popular in their time. It was once Elvis. Like a white face was able to take that's when rock and roll took over. And people always forget the origins. That Elvis didn't create all the stuff that came with rock and roll. He was just a good poster boy for it. And how culture keeps on like taking that for over and over again from the community.
Yeah, Elvis was very much like influenced by black music, blues music, and stuff like that. So very much very similar kind of vibes there with his career. Let's talk about some of the characters in this then. So obviously Michael B. Jordan, amazing as Smoke and Stack. I kind of loved how brilliantly he portrays both. Like Stack is very much more cocky and more carefree a little bit. He's certainly the funnier one, whereas Smoke is very much like a soldier. He's killed a lot of people, I think. Certainly the brains of the operation, I think. Yeah, I love the kind of the dark and shades that Michael B. Jordan brought to both these characters. And the costumes, I fucking love the costumes they wear.
Yeah. It's amazing that they are color coordinated throughout this whole movie.
Yeah.
Like Mario and Luigi.
Yeah. You'd think it looked really goofy, but it doesn't at all. It fits. I mean, I'm not a fan of flat caps, but Michael B. Jordan makes it work brilliantly.
Yeah.
Like that blue cap with the faded blue shirt, that was brilliant.
Mm.
And with Stack, he's got that kind of very dark red brimmed hat with that very bright red tie, and there's the hint of red shades in that shirt as well. Just a great costume design for those two.
It's a just great use of costumes in general, because there's like movies like this where like an actor's playing a dual role and it's tough to differentiate which one's which. At some point, like realizing like, okay, which one's the guy that I'm supposed to be taking care of, because they look exactly the same. When they, especially in those movies where like they dress them exactly the same and their hairstyle doesn't look any different. So it's like, all right, which one is this guy? So not all the case in Sinners, but it also just shows the range of Michael B. Jordan, that these characters are distinct and different. They aren't just like two shades of Michael B. Jordan. They're a little different.
So cool as well. One other thing about the acting as well, which I really like with the vampires, when kind of the characters turn into vampires, the acting is a little bit more heightened and a little bit more expressive, but they all kind of have this same level of kind of tone of acting, if you know what I mean, when they turn into a vampire, which I really loved, to be honest. That was great.
I thought Haley Steinfeld as a vampire was just great showcasing of her role. It's just like a little more menace, but still just like the character being a little more confident first, which makes you not realize she's a vampire.
Well, she's just not pissed off at like Stack, and he's just like, oh, I want to have sex with you now. I'm like,
let's have sex. It's like, okay.
Okay, she's vampire, dude.
Watch out, Stack.
Delroy Lindo is fantastic as Delta Slim, this blues guy, and I really loved his monologue that he does in the car about when his friend was like playing blues music in a jail, I think, and his friend gets like hung up in this kind of monologue, this story that he tells. But you hear a lot of the sound effects with that, which is kind of quite visceral as well. Apparently that monologue was a lot longer, and they kind of just cut it down for time, I guess. But yeah, and then after that blues riff that they go into, that's all improvised from Delroy Lindo. That wasn't in the script. They just kept the camera rolling. So that was kind of great to hear as well. And it works brilliantly. And I think apparently Delroy Lindo was saying that Miles Catton was taken aback a little bit. He was just like, and he was saying, you know, he's a young actor, and which is, you know, no fault of his own, but it was really interesting to see that he kind of went with it anyway. He was just like, yeah, get your guitar out. And he did, even though it wasn't in the script at all. So he was like, what are you doing, man? Oh, okay, I'll just play with this. Okay.
Yeah, I think that he, like, Delroy Lindo, was just a great sense of like salt in this movie. Just a great like character in this, especially in the beginning moments of the movie when you first are introduced to him. He's just like a random guy at a train station doing a harmonica. Just he adds just so much character, so much spice to this movie that is really needed.
Yeah. Kind of a great like zombie death as well, just being enveloped by vampires at the end.
Yeah, as he cuts his wrist and everything, that's great like makeup use there.
Yeah, definitely. He's funny as well. He's certainly one of the funniest characters. I guess because he's kind of acting drunk for most of the film.
And it seems like he sobers up once the vampires get there.
Yeah, I love that little scene as well when they're sort of doing the blood test from the thing with garlic. Which is kind of interesting from a story perspective as well, is that because obviously they find a body and they're like, oh, okay, one of us has to be a vampire already in here. But they made a mistake. Like, he just got really drunk. And the what they thought was blood on the floor was wine, I think. But yeah, his acting when he does eat his garlic clove was great. Like, he just, I guess, just great trying to stop himself throwing up because he drank too much.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
he's
just like, what the hell's going on, man?
Yeah, he's like, no, it's okay, I'm just drunk. Great little fake out.
Yeah, that was cool. Jack O'Connell as Ramick, I think, is just having a great time.
Yeah,
certainly when he's in proper like vampire mode with the really long fingernails, and every time he says Sammy, It's great. I love that.
He's just a great little bit of menace. I just love his beginning scene too, when we're first introduced to him, when he's talking to the lady outside of like the house, just like trying to convince her to come in. Like, please let me in. Can you let me in? Like, I need to go. And just great use of just like charm and menace at the same time, just creepiness. And I love, even in this movie, when he's first introduced to the juke joint community, when he comes in, just with like the almost ukulele sounding guitar right there.
Yeah,
and they come up and do their little
banjo.
dance, and just how much you want to yell at the screen right there, like, don't let him in, just like stay away from him, he's bad. But you can see why they're won over by him.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a great like menace about Jack O'Connell's acting, but it's brilliantly like reined in as well. Like, he's not trying to do too much. He definitely brings kind of this patronizing quality to the others, and obviously they don't really buy it, but like he keeps on at that about, you know, why it's so great about being a vampire, like blah blah blah. And also he's kind of not like, with his dialogue and the way he acts and delivers it, he's not really beating around the bush either about the fact that he is a vampire at times, which I really liked. And yet kind of still reining it in and not really, you know, hamming it up. And then when he does have the chance to really go for it, he really does. And also just kind of the action in this film between the actors is really, really well staged. Some really great stuff with the gun violence towards the end with Smoke, especially. And it doesn't go like too far and goofy and gimmicky like sometimes it can do. And it feels realistic as well. And it felt like it was over quickly with the action.
And just great cinematography throughout the action, especially the one like close-up shot that's in the trailer of like Michael B. Jordan with the Tommy gun, just like the bullets bouncing off him in like a slight slow-mo motion. Just great use of cinematography.
Yeah. And obviously Wumi Masaka was kind of really great as this sort of witch doctor type character. Kind of, I guess, in a way, sort of the heart and soul of this film, that you feel like everyone, even Smoke and Stack, they always kind of, they would look to her for any sort of issue, regardless of whether it was supernatural or not. You know, which was kind of, she brings that kind of very motherly figure for everyone, really. Yeah, I loved her performance for sure. And she even gets a sex scene as well. So.
Yeah. And it's great like how much they build up each individual character. This is a movie with like at least like 8 characters that you have to focus on. And when each character like passes away or gets turned or something like that, you feel the sense of loss. You feel just like the way. There's some movies where like there's so many red shirts that could have easily died, and there are in this movie. But they also just make the stakes so high that so many important characters you love die. At the end of the day, only one character lives, really. 2 return to vampires, and that's it.
Yeah, it's a fantastic film. I can't wait to buy the steelbook of this in 4K and get the vinyl on. The soundtrack's fucking amazing as well. I really loved it.
There was a hilarious moment during the movie where my girlfriend turned to me. The first time she ever told me this, she said, "You need to buy this movie on DVD." I was like, "Okay, I'll keep that in mind. I'll make sure we get it."
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's kind of great that this has been having like a lot of like universal appeal, which is kind of unusual for a film like this. You know, it's quite a graphic, bloody horror film. It's got vampires in it. It's a period piece. So it's just, I guess what's bringing people in is the fact that at its core it's about music, and it's about like black culture and how we enjoy that. So yeah, it's great to see. I think I always like to know what people's favorite scenes are in movies. Obviously, you know that from the podcast, the regular podcast. Yeah. I think for me, there's so many to choose from. I guess, I don't know. Of course, that one shot as they go through the juke joint and you see all these different people from different times and cultures. That was just such a bold move. And it was the point where I was just like, yeah, this is the point of the film. This is where this film has become really special now. And you know, this is the point where it stands out from the crowd of its rivals, I guess.
Yeah, that scene was definitely fantastic. For myself, it would definitely be the moment when Grace finally, just like the crescendo point, the boiling point in this movie, she finally invites in all the vampires. I remember getting goosebumps incredibly so once that moment happened, and also being like, oh shit, like what the fuck? Like, oh, they're fucked. Like, what's going on here? It's a great sense of tension, great release of tension too. Just finally open up the doors, especially with the IMAX ratio change right there.
Yeah, I love that shot as well, where you kind of see that they're all getting ready and they're all lined up, like ready for the doors to open. Yeah, that was cool. And also just Sammy hitting Remick in the head, and he has that big disc in his head. That was good.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay, I think we'll leave it there, people. An incredible film. I've seen it twice already, and I really want to see it again immediately. Yeah. Tommy, as always, brilliant. Thank you very much for coming on. This is your opportunity to tell us about your podcast, and where can we find you, sir?
Yeah, thank you for having me on again. I think this might be the 5th or 6th time at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. But regardless, anyways, thank you so much for having me on. My podcast, Haven't Seen It, you can find it on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Our show is basically each week, me and my co-host, Timmy, we cover a movie that one of us hasn't seen before. So it's been everything from The Godfather to Scream. We just wrapped up a sports movie month where we covered Days of Thunder, Hoosiers, and Bull Durham. So check us out, Apple, Spotify, and check us out on Twitter at CNETPod. And we're also on Instagram, TikTok, all the socials you can think of.
Excellent. Right. Go see Sinners, people. Go see it again. Bye-bye. That's it for spoilers, guys. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. But don't stop there. Get involved and tell me what your thoughts are about this film. Send us a DM or comment on Instagram and TikTok at Film vs. Film Podcast, for X at FVF_podcast. Plus, we are now on YouTube, so hit that like button and comment there. If you do, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Remember, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Pod signing off.